We're witnessing a revolution that is similar to something that happened over 150 years ago. And history is a very inspired director. It doesn't repeat its best pieces in the exact same way that it happened in the past. Instead, it makes sure that the sequel rhymes. And if you haven't paid attention to how the Industrial Revolution affected the livelihoods of the workers and how it affected the livelihood of the workers, then my friend, you might be sleeping to the climax of this movie. In this video, I am going to be a faithful movie critic in the sense that I am going to be covering the similarities between the Industrial Revolution and the AI revolution we're witnessing today. And as a bonus, I am going to share some strategies that you can use to still make an income and make a living for yourself in the post-AI revolution era. Let's get into it. So this first comparison had me scratching my head for a while. What is the equivalent for the steam engine? The very thing that allowed the Industrial Revolution to come about. At first I thought it had to be GPUs, right? Because without GPUs, you would not be able to train these AI models. You would not be able to have inference that allows us to use AI models. But then I thought to myself that the reason AI caught on so rapidly is not because of GPUs. GPUs have existed for a long time and we've been using them to play games, right? The AI revolution got on because of the generative pre-trained transformer model, or the GPT model. And interestingly enough, much like the steam engine, the GPT model was not packaged for wide adoption by the very first inventor of the model. James Watt perfected the steam engine, but he wasn't the original inventor of the steam engine. He packaged it so that it would be available and practical for widespread use. Kind of like how the GPT model was developed by Google and perfected for wide use by OpenAI. The Industrial Revolution actually happened over a really long period of time. It started in Great Britain in the 1750s, but it wasn't until the early 1900s when the revolution really took foothold around the world. But it's neither here nor there. The pace of technological development has accelerated significantly since then, and change happens in the matter of a few months now. Anyway, what I want to focus on is how it affected the way work was done. Before the Industrial Revolution, workers would focus on small-scale production, using crude tools at home out of their small-scale work setups to make clothes, to make food, to make equipment and tools that then they would sell to the market. But with the Industrial Revolution, with the advent of electricity, when human labor could conveniently be replaced by mechanical labor, the output possible by these machines increased significantly, so much so that it no longer made sense for humans to be working in their small setups out of their homes, producing things with a much smaller throughput. It only made sense to organize into much larger units of production in places that we now call factories. But all of that is in the past. Let's come back to reality. Let's come back to present time to understand how something incredibly similar is happening with the AI revolution. And to drive the point home very strongly, I am going to use the example of software engineering. You see, pre-AI, pre-GPT-based agentic coding, software engineers would spend many years perfecting the skill sets and gathering the knowledge they needed to build these really complicated systems that we call software systems. And in a lot of ways, these systems were so complex and so technical to build that software engineers, individual contributors, became the means of production. You could not build these systems without them. And you could make the same case for virtually every knowledge worker out there. Doctors, lawyers, accountants, economists, professors, even the dude that's shooting a TikTok dance in your driveway right now. The way software is built right now is these software engineers basically talk to a large language model that is hosted remotely in a centralized manner. Centralized meaning obviously it's distributed to ensure fault tolerance, but centralized meaning that it's owned and controlled by a handful of big tech corporations. They talk to these LLMs, and these LLMs build these complex software systems for them. The means of production has basically migrated from here to there. And don't think for a second that just because you aren't paying anything to use ChatGPT, that it's free. There absolutely is a cost to AI inference. You are absolutely paying by the token, but your bill has already been paid for by the cost of customer acquisition that these companies are spending when they invest in you. Adoption is the name of the game right now. And all of that is very scary, very distressing. Obviously, during the Industrial Revolution, the means of production went from small-scale production units at home of these workers to large-scale factories. In the AI revolution, the means of production are going from the technical know-hows that are siloed within years of lived experiences of workers to these large-scale AI models. Okay, now let's talk mitigations. What can you do to still stay relevant? What can you do to make sure that you're not just laid off, cast to the side, panhandling for AI credits? Well, the answer is simple, and the answer is the same as it's always been. Build income-generating assets. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, I got to invest in real estate, right? But hang on, I don't have enough money to put a down payment down for acquiring real estate. I don't have the capital, and you'd also be right. But here's the good news. In the day and age of today, you don't necessarily have to invest in hard assets. There's a lot of hard asset plays, but there's also lower barrier to entry in terms of capital ways to build income-generating assets. And as promised, here are 5 strategies to build income-generating assets tailored to the times of today. First of all, let's get the obvious one out of the way. Yes, if you have the capital to spare, you should invest in real estate. House hacking is a great way to capture some of the benefits of being a first-time homeowner / first-time home buyer. You get to live in the house that you buy and also treat the asset that you now own as an income-generating asset. You could rent out a few rooms or you could rent out the basement. It's harder to make this work, obviously, if you're living with family or if you already have a baby, but you could maybe split the unit, top story and bottom story, or rent out the basement or something like that. But the idea is you own asset that is generating income for you. That's the name of the game. If you're more financially savvy and you have a higher risk tolerance, you can even buy a property that is in shambles, rehab it, and then either spin it for a profit or command higher rents when you list it to be rented out. The reason real estate investing is not my favorite kind of investing is because it commoditizes housing, which should be a basic human right. Meaning, if your insatiable desire to make profit makes it difficult for a small new family trying to get their first home to move into, guess what? You're a piece of shit. Okay, number 2, we talked about housing. Now let's talk about how you can help people move around. Let's get into the world of Turo. Turo lets you rent out one or more of your privately owned cars to other individuals who are simply trying to get around, but who do not want to be standing at the rental counter and going through the hassle of picking up a car at the airport from one of these big rental car companies. However, word to the wise, owning a fleet of Turo cars is like owning a fleet of depreciating assets, but if you pick your cars right and you're diligent about maintenance, you can get pretty solid cash flow, and by the end of service for the car, you're actually going to turn a significant profit. And number 3, this might be my favorite way to create an income-generating asset because this is not pay to play. You need 0 investment to get started. All you need is your phone. Yes, I'm talking about building a social media presence. If you spend time becoming an expert in something, and if you're able to engage with your followers and viewers, and if you're able to offer something of value to your viewership, then you are able to treat your social media brand as an income-generating asset. But here's the truth. Instagram doesn't really pay you anything. TikTok pays you pennies for the content you create, and YouTube pays you the big bucks, but the path to getting monetized is a long and arduous one. It is a staying game. But if you invest time in building a credible and strong personal brand, then sponsorships can be a good source of income from social media. Number 4, build a business. A business, if it makes an income for you, is a cash-generating asset. This could be a tech startup that you literally vibe coded, or this could be a brick and mortar store that offers some kind of a good or a service to people. The point is, your business, as long as it's able to bring an income to you, is going to be that income-generating asset. And finally, number 5, I am not really sure about the viability for this yet, but I think all trends point to there being a need for edge computing. What I mean by that is people setting up GPU rigs and GPU clusters out of their homes and out of their garages in order to provide edge compute for AI applications in their neighborhoods or in remote locations.